Good afternoon and welcome to this week's episode of Hired. What's the right word to say? I'm excited, I'm happy, I'm honored, and in awe of my guest this week. I'm going to bring out Christy shortly, but I've talked a lot about video in terms of its presence in the business landscape when it comes to hiring, whether it comes to conducting meetings, and I feel like we're going about this unarmed. We're not fully trained on how to be in front of the camera, to feel comfortable, to feel like our authentic selves. So Christy's nice enough to come on today and teach us all how to be amazingly authentic in front of the camera. So a little background about Christy. She spent over a decade being on the side of the lens that scares the majority of us, in front of TV, doing things, the chief weather, doing a reporting kind of on the news anchor, and as a journalist. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to my guest, and at the end of this, if I'm nice, my friend, Christy Siefken. Christy, thanks for coming.
Thank you for the beautiful intro. And we are already friends, no matter what happens in this podcast. And thank you for that beautiful introduction. You are extremely talented on camera. So I'm going to be interviewing you at some point about how you got there. I'll offer my tips and tricks, but you present yourself beautifully and people have a lot to learn from you as a host. So keep it up.
Well, thank you very much. And I'll tell everyone my tricks is just follow Christy on LinkedIn because she gives them out for free.
That is true.
Before we jump into the topic today about being kind of comfortable and amazing on camera, we had spoke and you were hosting a charity event where they had the telephone booth style with the dollar bills that were hurricaning up. Now, Let me ask you a very important question. Mm-hmm. Did you get to compete? And if you didn't, how much do you think you would be able to grab? Is it a minute you get in there? How long do you get?
60 seconds. Yes. So it's the money grab booth. I love that you saw this. They throw dollar bills up, throw these fans on beneath, and you're trying to, grab bills. It's a lot harder than you think. I did try it. I didn't get to take any money home, but I think I ended up with $3 or $4. Here was the kicker. Half the money in the tank or the tube was real cash and half was fake. So most of what I grabbed, unfortunately, ended up being the fake dollars. I pulled out $100 bill. I'm like, yes, this is my day. And then realized that was kind of the Monopoly money version. But that was so fun. And that event that I emceed the year previous, they had the Price is Right wheel where you get to pull the wheel and play for a prize. So these people knew how to put on a fun event. But yeah, that tank, if you get a chance to be in it, really fun, but it's harder than it looks.
I'm jealous. I'd like to. I didn't know they mixed in fake money there. That's a whole different element that changes the game.
Well, during these times, financial times, you got to put half fake money in and half real money, to make sure your bottom line is still in good shape.
Awesome. Well, I want to get into the topic today, but to kind of kick things off, I don't want you to go through your entire career in terms of what you've done, but if you could introduce your maybe your first experience in front of the camera. What was that like for you? Kind of what was the task? What were the nerves like? What was the feeling when it went 3, 2, 1, go? If you could just kind of tell us that story to kick things off, I think that I would be interested in hearing that.
Absolutely. And my first time on camera, like for many, was not anything official. I didn't have any training at the time. I was working in management in nonprofits, and there was a big community event, and I was chosen as the person to talk to the reporter, to be interviewed. And my thought was, okay, I've got this. I'm going to do some talking points, and I'll practice the night before, just like a little presentation in a boardroom. And then I remember standing there with the reporter, and everything I had practiced completely went out the window. It was Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I didn't remember anything that I'd written down. Everything I'd practiced beautifully before, I could not string a sentence together. And I was mortified. And I remember after thinking, this poor reporter is trying to find a little piece of my interview to put in her story. She did, but it was so terrible. And that is buried on a DVD in a box somewhere in my closet. And it was what many people experience. It is that deer in the headlights. I'm not talking to a person. What is this lens? I don't feel like myself. And that was a moment for me that I realized if I really wanted to get good at broadcasting, at being on camera, I would need to pursue an education in it. It wasn't the same as reviewing some information and giving a quick presentation. It's an entirely different beast when you're talking into this.
Now, and that kicks off nicely in terms of, your training that you took before you did this professionally. Can you give us a glimpse? Because I'm not even sure how it works in terms
Sure.
of the degree and how much time. So what was the training
Yeah.
and background before you were professionally in front of a camera?
Once I had that bomb experience, I decided to pursue a master's in multimedia journalism. So I went to get a master's degree, a 2-year program in San Francisco, California, to learn all things broadcast. So not just being on camera, but shooting video, storytelling, using emotion and logic within your messaging to really influence people and to move people to take action. And through that, we had to shoot stories and be on camera every single day. Our instructors had us record something called a video journal, where basically you just talk into your camera, talking about your day. And I didn't really understand the value of it until years later, because what that did was get you comfortable talking into this lifeless lens and really connecting with it as if you're speaking to a person one-on-one. And it's also great to look back and see my much younger, more naive self in those videos. You think of the big issue in the world, 12 or 15 years ago is very different than what we're dealing with now. But it's something that I recommend people do, and was just a piece of education that in daily life you can incorporate. Record yourself on video every single day. So that was a piece of the on camera training that we did casually. All of the formal training then led me to work on air in San Francisco. So while I was pursuing my degree, I also started working for a TV station. And then I got to work for another TV station, and then started doing on-camera work with a startup company that needed somebody to be an on-camera talent for them. So it was all of those things melded together that then primed me to pursue my first full-time work, which was here in Phoenix, Arizona.
So as an amateur individual in front of the camera, how long
Mhm.
did it take till you felt comfortable, till, when they were doing the countdown, 3, 2, 1, go live, you didn't
Mhm.
get one of those holy crap moments? Like, at what point
Panic
did you start
attacks.
feeling really comfortable in front of the camera? Yeah.
Probably a year in of doing it every single day. It wasn't to say that I was completely speechless and couldn't function, but it was those amount of reps every single day, incorporating it into my work in not only the studio, but also in my home life, just on my phone or my home camera, that I really started to feel comfortable. Now, that said, there are a lot of things in retrospect that I wasn't taught that I now know. And when I work with clients, they don't have to work for a year to do it. We can do it on a more accelerated basis, but it's something that does take time. It's unfair to yourself to say, hey, I'm going to practice this a few times, do a few recordings, I'll be good to go. The outcome is not going to be what you want, and understandably so, because it does take longer than that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, I think, the use of video going up, the lack of training, in the business
Yeah.
community, people going is probably what catapulted you to founding and creating the go-to
Yeah.
speaker method, which we're going to get to later. And I think listeners are going to be super excited to dig into more information there. But before we jump into that, how have you seen the use of video increase in business and everyday life from, say, 2, 5 years ago?
It's been a tremendous increase, not just because of the pandemic, but because companies have gotten wise to the fact that there is no richer media than video to establish trust, to establish authenticity, because you have the combination. I like to think of it as the power triad, if you will. You have the voice, you have the message that's being conveyed, the expressions that are being conveyed through your face, and you also have the gestures. So it's that human connection that's being established through a camera that's the next best thing to being in person with someone. And video itself, as you know, is really powerful. You can have powerful music, powerful imagery, but it is the human face that really draws people in. It's part of our evolutionary biology. We, from the time of our birth, are drawn to look at people's faces and to look for social cues and to know our place in the world and if we're in danger or if it's a positive interaction we're having. And that's why companies are starting to put their employees, their clients, their leaders on camera more and more because they know it's the ultimate marketing tool. So they're doing that in recorded video. That could be collateral for a website. It could be interviews with clients. They're doing it clearly on social media. There's a reason why not just high schoolers are on TikTok. Now we have people in their 90s and 100s with TikTok channels as well. So they're creating collateral there. And then they're also using video in a live streaming setting. So this video podcast that we're doing, LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, that's allowing us to communicate authentically with me in Arizona and you in Canada. Perfect example. We would have had to fly me out to your studio, which I wouldn't blame you if you didn't want to invest that expense. But that's in the olden days, if you will, what we would have had to do. We don't anymore. We can correspond this way, save time, save money. You don't have to rent the big conference center anymore to have your keynote speaker. You can have thousands of people that are listening and watching someone directly through this camera lens. And also messaging from, I think, really the C-suite. I've started to see a lot of companies recording messages in the C-suite to then disseminate to staff as a way to kind of connect maybe the boots on the ground workers with those in the higher echelons. Those individuals who never cross paths now can feel connected because of video.
And I love the last point and something you said about, how we're gravitated towards faces. And I think, when we read something, we interpret that for the mood we're in now. So you and I can read the same message and interpret it completely differently. Whereas if it's a video, you can control the narrative and there's less of that because you can see the facial kind of expressions and things that way.
Right.
Now, does that make it challenging when you're on video and you don't have the other side to work off of? If you're doing a video where you're speaking to people, but you're not actually speaking to people, you're speaking to a camera, is that a challenge? How do you overcome that when you're just so used to it's a give and take, a conversation?
It is the ultimate challenge not to have the other person responding. And that's a big piece of why people struggle when they go on camera to start. We're used to seeing someone smiling or someone nodding or someone looking confused, getting the cue on the other side that, okay, I need to navigate what I'm saying, move it over here or move it over there. We don't have that. And it's one of the things that deters people from even trying this. They go on camera the first time, they become the deer in the headlights. They don't look like themselves. They don't sound like themselves. And they say, I never want to do this again. That's not me. That's awful. And that's the worst thing you can do is just shut the book and not revisit it, because there are techniques to become more comfortable. And to answer your question, one of the easiest ways to do that is to pretend that this is an individual. When you're looking at a camera, it is a conversation with one person. That's all it is. Literally, it's a conversation with one person right now between the two of us. But even if you are broadcasting to 30,000 viewers, you are having a conversation with one person, and having that mindset of talking to that one individual, even having a conversation with that one individual before you come on camera. So you're in that mindset of a conversation can help you to appear more natural and more like yourself when you are on video.
I like that tip of kind of practicing it before you go live and having that conversation with the individual. Do you find that there's one or a few common challenges or concerns people have about being in front of the camera through your experience?
I think all of us are afraid of judgment, and there is no greater way to be judged than when people are looking at you, listening to you, and thinking about the message. So within the context of video, we have all these angles from which people can potentially attack us. But here's the secret that I always share with clients. People aren't looking for you to fail. They are listening to you on video because they want to learn something, because you are bringing value. I don't want somebody to show up and be robotic and perfectly say all their lines and do the perfect gesture here and there. We often look robotic when we start out on camera. Instead, move toward that space of sharing your knowledge, sharing the gift of whatever it is that you are bringing to the table through video. And people can overcome that also by getting feedback from others. The way we perceive ourselves is often so different from how others perceive us. You may create a video and think, oh, that was the worst thing ever. You show it to others and they say, hey, Mike, I learned a lot about the hiring process through that. And I love that story that you told about your first interview that you bombed. We don't have the perspective to see ourselves in that way. A friend taught me the phrase, you can't see the picture when you're inside the frame. And that's sometimes what happens when we record these videos. They bring great value, but we're so critical of ourselves, we can't see it.
Do you find it, and this is a little off topic, but I want to get your perspective, is being on video is a skill, just like anything else. But because the judgment factor comes in, it makes us less willing to practice and hone that skill because we fear what it looks like and how we judge ourselves. Where if it's any other skill, if it's writing or, if it's a skill at work, you're happy to continue to try because it's not so personal in terms of how it's perceived. How do you overcome the judgment that you have of yourself of maybe not being good or perceiving that you're not yourself when you're on film?
Well, two things I want to highlight first. For those who watch themselves on film and you say, that's not me, that doesn't look like me, that doesn't sound like me, you're not crazy. The truth of the matter is there is cognitive dissonance there. So when we look at ourselves and we look at ourselves moving, it's in a mirror, right? If you're doing your hair, you're brushing your teeth, you're used to seeing yourself and seeing your movements in a mirrored reflection. When we see ourselves on camera, it's the reverse. It's how someone sees us when they're standing face to face looking at us. So automatically, what you see on a video of yourself is not what you're used to seeing in the mirror. So already your brain is thrown off base. And then when you say, oh, I don't sound like myself, I hate the sound of my voice, there's good reason for that too. Because when we speak and you hear your own voice, it's traveling through the air. It's also vibrating through bone conduction. When you listen to yourself on a video, it's just sound traveling through air. So first of all, if you think, I look awful, I sound awful, it's only because you're used to seeing yourself and looking at yourself in a totally different way. This has been studied. It's you're not crazy. Everybody feels this way. So in terms of overcoming the judgment factor of it, it's realizing that there are really going to be two versions of yourself. The version that you're used to seeing and experiencing in one-on-one in-person conversations, and the version that is the video version. And the more you listen to yourself and the more you watch yourself there, and I have some tips to talk about what you can work on to improve that, the more you get comfortable with it, the more you get used to it. I think of the analogy of maybe riding a bike or the metaphor. When you start, it isn't smooth. You're trying to figure out how to tip one way on the handlebars to the right and balance with a pedal on the left, and it feels completely awkward. But you don't stop pedaling. You don't stop trying to ride the bike. You keep at it until you get the wheel going and you get the momentum and you get used to the muscle memory, if you will. And it's the same for speaking on camera. The muscle memory of your gestures, the way that you speak, the way that you prepare phrasing before you need to give a presentation, all of that with practice becomes more natural, so that the old version of yourself, that is the version you might cringe at on camera, you leave that behind and evolve into this newer, better version that you realize is an effective version that really is bringing value to people when you speak.
That was great. I love that. And I can't wait to jump into the tips. We do have a question that has come in. While I love videos, do you think we lose something with the lack of face-to-face interactions?
I think we absolutely do. I don't think that video is a substitute for face-to-face interactions. However, I think it opens the door to give interaction with a lot more people who we wouldn't interact with otherwise. Perfect example, I have some clients that are in Singapore that I never would have met, I never would have worked with, I never would have been able to have the impact or learn about the incredible work that they're doing in AI if we didn't have this ability to join on a video conference. And I think also in terms of communicating messages succinctly and quickly and disseminating information quickly, this is where video really shines. If you have to wait to have an emergent conversation with somebody and you have to do it face to face, that could be really precious time that is lost in terms of business decisions being made. Maybe it's even an interpersonal decision that has to be made, or a difficult conversation. You can convey a lot over the phone, but adding the video element takes it to that next level where we have the facial cues and we have the gestures as cues also to help us really understand the message intellectually and also emotionally.
I agree. I think, we went all the way video because we had to. We were put in that
Mhm.
position, and it's going to come back to more of a overused term hybrid model where it's
Right.
half and half. But even in the hiring instance, you're able to be much more efficient hiring candidates
Yes.
all over the world where you wouldn't otherwise be able to. You'd have to do it over the phone, or you have to fly people in to do it, and it
Mhm.
takes a full day to go through that. Where now you turn on your camera, you can have a chat for 30 minutes before you decide if you want to further that relationship on. I don't think it's a
Correct.
substitute. It's just an addition to building that and getting to that face-to-face interaction. So thanks
Agree
for the questions, guys.
100%.
Keep them coming. If you have them, keep them coming. But I want to get to the tips. If you could give
Absolutely.
us all a tip, 2, 3, 20, no, not 20, but like a tip or two on how we can all be more comfortable, more amazing, more authentic in front of the camera, what would it be?
I'll give you 3 tips. How about that? And then we'll get to tips 4 through 20 on another day or on a continuing series. The first recommendation I would make is to have a walk-up routine before you go on video. No different than a professional athlete, a singer, a comedian. We need to get our body and our mind in the place of being ready to show up, because this is a performance of sorts. So on the body side, and this is something that I've done from day one of being on camera, you need to get warmed up. That means physically. If you're really anxious, which a lot of us are before we go on camera, get that energy out. Do the jumping jacks, do the burpees, go for a jog. I worked out this morning before I met with you because that was kind of my ritual of getting in the right space, a calm space. For someone else, it might be meditation or yoga. Play around with those, see what works for you. But in terms of your mind, it's getting in that headspace of, as I mentioned earlier, the one-on-one conversation, that this truly is a continuation of a conversation with your friend, your coworker, a loved one. Put a picture of them up next to your camera lens. Put a picture of your grandma's smiling face or your cute 4-year-old. So when you look at that lens, you're speaking to them. And that also gets you in the headspace of speaking conversationally instead of just spewing information or giving a speech. We always want this to be a conversation instead of just a data dump, if you will. And reminding yourself also, you are the right person to be doing this. You've been asked to be on this podcast or to create this video or to be on a LinkedIn Live because you have some sort of expertise or lens on the world that is going to bring value. So if you focus on the value first and foremost, then you don't stress so much about the filler phrases or did I stumble or did I get distracted, because you're focusing on the core of your message. That would be number 1, your walk-up routine. Number 2, prepare your message. And this may sound so basic and okay, duh, Christy, of course I want to prepare what I'm going to say. But we live in a world of I'll wing it. And winging it leads to bad things most of the time, especially if you are working in a time constraint, which video often has. There's a time limit on this podcast. There's a time limit for the video you're making on Instagram. You start to get derailed by the details. You think you know the message, but then you tell the story over here. And oh, by the way, I want to talk about that. Your audience gets lost. So when you prepare your messaging, think of the one thing that if your audience forgot everything else, what is the one key message that you'd want them to remember? And that's a lot of the work I do with my clients, is crafting messaging that people will walk away, remember the overarching theme and story, and the details can be supplemented. Somebody can always Google something or you can send them material afterward, but make sure the message is clear and concise. And then finally, and this is the tip number 3 that people hate, get on camera every day. Practice and get the feedback. You want to record yourself and see, do you have lots of filler words? do I speak really softly and you can't really hear what I'm saying? If I'm in an office chair, do I have the swivel? This is a big one a lot of people do and don't realize. Do I get nervous and I play with my watch? Do I speak in a monotone and deliver information this way the whole time? You may not realize you do any or all of those things until you watch it. And as painful as it is, that's the only way we can get better is to watch it and bring in somebody who knows you, someone who knows your humor, knows your storytelling style, knows your speaking style. Have them watch it with you and say, you know, Christy, I'm not really seeing, usually you're really energetic. You seem flat here. Or, gosh, you're talking so fast. I can't understand the concept. As we internalize that feedback, we get better and better and incorporate it in an easy way. You don't have to give a business presentation every day. You can take your phone, prop it up on the washing machine as you're folding laundry and talk into the camera about something great that happened to you that day, or talk about what your goals are for this next year. Do it in just a conversational, casual way. And as you get used to speaking to the camera that way, that skill set and that comfort is going to carry over to speaking in a business setting too.
Those 3 tips were extremely valuable. In my head, I was like, I got to write these down, but I'm just going to go back and listen to them.
You're
all over
recording
again.
it. You got the show.
Exactly. Christy, those are fantastic tips. I mean, the comments are coming in. Love the idea of a walk-up routine. Someone says they think they need a walk-up song, like a baseball player.
Absolutely you can.
What would be yours? What would be your walk-up song?
I just had to pick a walk-up song for an event that I emceed. And what did I end up picking? I picked Pharrell's Because I'm Happy. It's kind of mellow, but I'm a happy person and it's kind of chill and gets you in that mindset of maybe just, walking down the street, having a good time, or you're at the beach, enjoying time with friends. So that gets me in that positive mind space instead of, oh my gosh, am I going to remember my message? Am I going to be asked a question I don't know? Just kind of zen out. How about for you? What would you pick?
So I just finished the show We Crashed. Have you seen this? The
yes.
story
Oh my gosh. So good.
Of Adam Newman and Katy Perry Roar. Like it was, and I want to know if it's actually true that he had it playing every time he showed up to the office. Because if he did, that's amazing. Like imagine having a walk-up song for your day, and like when you get off the elevator, your song is playing. Like, so now,
why don't you have him on the show and ask him, Mike?
I should. So now I play it walking in, and it makes me smile because I like to think of it's in funny context of the show, but also like how great it is that someone has that in their life of a walk-up song. So that would definitely be mine.
We all should do that.
Annette says "Don't Stop Believing" by Journey. That's a great one. Like that one is
good. So good.
That's a really good one.
Mine's way too mellow. I need something more pumped up. These are great recommendations, everyone.
Dancing in the Streets. Yeah, I like it.
Oh, that's a good one too. Yes.
So, in terms of, and I know we've taken up your time and this has been great. I think, there's enough here. We're going to have to do another episode eventually for sure.
I'd love
to. There's a lot of stuff, but where can people find you? Can you tell us a little bit about, without giving too much of the secrets of the go-to speaker method that you created and founded, and how people can interact with you, where they can find you, and how they can learn how to be as amazing on camera as you are?
Oh, well, thank you for that. It is really my gift, I feel, in this world to elevate people and help them become the best version of themselves. And what I've been doing my whole life is speaking and messaging and showing up, not just in this space, but in person, and learning how to do that over the course of 20 years through TV news, through being on network television, Discovery Channel, Animal Planet, and sharing these skills with others. I don't want you to have to spend 20 years doing that or invest in a master's degree to learn these secrets. So my program teaches you to identify what is authentic about you and your brand as an individual, and how do you bring that about through your speaking voice and through your messaging. So whether you want to do a TED Talk, if you want to appear on podcasts like this, you want to start your own podcast, you want to start a video channel, I teach you how to communicate your unique genius in a way that's interesting to people and makes them act. And the more and more that I work with clients from different cultures, different backgrounds, I see this universal theme across the board. And you maybe see it too, Mike, that people want to become their own brand, whether it's within the context of a company or they are entrepreneurs. And I genuinely believe there's no better way to communicate your brand than through the spoken word. So I work with individuals through an intensive 8-week program. I also offer workshops in a corporate setting. And I have a website that is my name, christysiefkin.com, or you can click on my LinkedIn profile that you included in the notice for today's show. And I'd love to hop on a call and talk about what your goals are, how I can help you. It's a really fun time. This is the Wild West of video. I think we're going to see, especially in the metaverse, all sorts of developments that require you to be a really good messenger, even if it's the avatar version of you, which some of you are probably saying, whew, I don't have to be on camera, Christy. I can just wait for the avatar version. The need to be able to communicate, though, and connect with people, whether you are marketing yourself, you're selling a product, you're convincing your spouse that you want to buy this new house down the street. All of that is accomplished through clear and compelling communication. And I'd love to help you with that if that's of interest.
And I'm telling you right now, connect with Christy, start following her content on LinkedIn. It's fantastic. And if you get a chance, definitely sign up for one of the workshops to work with her. Christy, thank you so much for coming today. I had a great time. It was a lot of fun.
I had a blast.
It was extremely valuable, and we'll have to do it again.
I would love that. And if I could play Roar in the background on my phone, I would, but I don't think I have it on speed dial. But that's the song, the out song I'm playing for you, because you are a rock star and I love what you're doing with video in the professional space. Keep it up.
Awesome. Thanks, Christy. And thanks, you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.